When we move on and I'm talking about variegated threads, I want you to see why you would want to choose certain ones. I never realized what was behind variegated threads until I did a little bit of research. And I realized that there are some threads that have a shorter distance than of color than others. And we have, normally you have a distance of 8 inches. And so sometimes you have a distance of 1 inch. And so what you would want to do is make sure that what you were doing had the correct choices here for what you were doing. Because here is a stitch right here, and this is the one that has the 1 inch. And this stitch right here, as you can see, as my sewing machine begins to change, it actually makes the stitches be different from this part of the scallop to that part of the scallop. And so in some cases, I don't want that in a heavy stitch. And so I would maybe choose something a little different than variegated for a heavy stitch. Now on this stitch right here, this one turned out beautifully because it's so random. It's just a beautiful little swirly flower, and it takes that thread so pretty. And so because it's all random, it doesn't come out as one color. Now here's a great contrast here for you to see these threads and the distance that they are. This one right here is 1 inch, and it is 1 inch from the color changes, and that's what I'm talking about. This one is 8 inches, and do you see that when I do this stitch, this same scallop stitch, I get my color will change, and it will be all this stitch will be red, and then all this stitch will be blue, and then on this one it changes as I go down. So in my opinion, and this is just what you decide what you want, these types of stitches that go back and forth and are random, and this is a needle point stitch, cross stitch. This is really pretty with the 1 inch because of the variation as it goes down into those stitches. And you see how beautiful that is? It's so pretty. Now you notice the same stitch, again, it's yellow, and then it's red, and then it's blue. And to get those to work is harder to get that length. So really these longer stitches, these longer threads were made so that you could actually maybe do 1 flower or 1 leaf and move your thread up. So here's a flower that I did, and this was the 8 inch. And do you see the whole flower turned out to be yellow, and this flower turned out to be red, and that one turned out to be green. So I had exactly the amount of length in the blue to go from the top to the bottom, the green, to go from the top to the bottom of that stitch, which worked out perfectly. And so now let's talk about leaves or greens. Here is a green that is actually a twisted color. There are 2 colors in it, and it's twisted. And it's very subtle, but you get 2 kind of tones as you're stitching. And then here is a variegated thread where it's actually 3 tones, and they are separate. And so now let me show you here on this sample how that happens to work. Here is the twisted thread that's all 1 color, and this one is going to give you more of an overall look and maybe a little bit of a change all throughout the leaf stitch. This one here is when I changed, and I put the 8 inch changed color on there. And do you see how it's dark here, a little lighter, and then a little bit lighter? And then there's just another stitch so you can see. Depending on the stitch you choose, you're going to be able to, depending on how much that moves, you're going to be able to choose what stitch you want for the type of thread color. And here up here I made just separate leaves, and you can see that this one has a variation all the way down. So this one is actually kind of pretty because it has a variation at the top and a variation at the bottom. This one is the one with the twists.